It may come as a real shocker, but I like to reminisce about old Clash of Clans. I talk about it like there was never a better time to play. But that's certainly not the case. I wouldn't be playing 12 years later if the game never evolved, because man, were there some really annoying moments. Today, we're taking a look at some of the worst things about old Clash. For example, the only thing you could do in the game besides farming was trophy push. I hope you like clouds. The clans didn't even clash. What kind of false advertising? What was the point of the game? It was pretty boring at times, just sitting there waiting an eternity for everything, which is my next point. I mean, seriously, armies that took hours to train, 18-hour spells, and heroes, if you use them once, forget about it. They'll be sleeping for the next 24 hours. You know, attacking in Clash of Clans was something you did like once or twice a day if you got lucky. It was a really big deal, and oh man, if you logged off without a shield with a full army, you were in for a rude awakening. Your troops just went poof if your camp was destroyed. I'm not sure why the developers thought that was a great idea, because the camps which sit outside is like the first thing that gets destroyed. Luckily, this was changed pretty early on. But something that wasn't was the process of switching accounts. Genuinely one of the most frustrating things ever before Supercell ID. You had to go through your phone, logging out and logging into different accounts, and then the game prompted you to switch in a really annoying way. But at least Google would save your email. Game Center on iPhone did not do that. It made you type it every single time. And don't even ask about how you made a new village on either device. But speaking of devices, man, was the performance rough. You were lucky to get a stable 30 FPS all the time. Simple stuff like snow would make your phone blow up. And a waterfall? Forget about it. It was too demanding for phones at the time, so they had to remove it. No, another thing that was terrible about the old Clash days was because troops costed resources, it really limited your creativity. It felt like you had to stay away from those high-cost armies when farming, which is 95% of the game. And in a game that's all about attacking bases, it was really lame. How scarce loot was made it even worse. Remember being excited about finding 100,000 of a resource or 200,000? Felt like you hit the jackpot. You had to farm so much more because you weren't out here finding 1 million of each, let alone the 4 million we can today. Not even in your dreams. That's why people stealing your precious Dark Elixir with lightning spells was such an annoying thing. I mean, it helped players farm it faster in a time where it felt impossible to find, but at the same time, the Dark Elixir you farmed for hours was repeatedly getting zapped when you got offline, and you got no shield from it sometimes. The fact that it took so long to do something about it was really lame. You know what else took a very long time? Balance changes. I mean, you think we have it bad today, but the Hog Rider was shredding bases for what felt like 3 years. Balancing was not really a huge focus to the developers back then, and it was okay because Clash was not exactly a competitive game. It wasn't known for that. There was no esports for it. A lot of the focus was in new stuff, new content, but unfortunately those came in slow as well. Updates were smaller because the team was smaller, and this went on for years. You would have to wait months for something small to be added to the game, and new town halls were like eons apart. Don't get me wrong, we got a lot of amazing updates in the old days, but if you think updates today are coming in slow, you probably wouldn't have the patience for Clash in those days. But speaking of patience, man oh man, remember being stuck at a town hall for like 2 years? Progression was insanely slow. It took literal years to get to Town Hall 10. Today, that same amount of progression will take you like a couple of months. The fact that there is much more Town Halls to progress through makes it even better than being stuck at Town Hall 8 for over a year. This has got to be one of the best things about Clash today, the amount of content you can unlock in such a short amount of time. It's fun. Which reminds me, the variety of armies you can make today is wild. Back then, it felt like you only had a handful of popular armies to choose from. Go Wipe was pretty common, Lavaloon, Mass Hogs, maybe Barch, and anything outside of that was more or less the same thing. There was a lack of variety for a very long time, especially when most players were under a certain town hall still. But maybe staying at those lower town halls was for the better, as for a very long time, the difficulty of the higher town halls was pretty high. Getting a 3-star almost felt impossible at times, and while this has been debated to be a good thing, seeing as Clash today is very easy, for the casual player at the time, this was not fun. The high skill barrier led to the explosion of cheats, which were way more common. Back then, it wasn't crazy to think that maybe because a clan or a player did so good, they might have been cheating with mods or exploits, and at the time, the game just felt unfair because of this. Luckily, they seem to have it under control more than ever nowadays. Something they still need to improve though is the support, but we should be thankful that there is at least something, as once upon a time, there was no support. You had to email Supercell directly and hope they would reply 2 months later or at all, only to find out that they couldn't help with your issue. Alright, let's switch gears here a bit. Let's take a look at some features that I don't think I could live without. For example, the Village Edit mode. I'm not really sure if anyone actually enjoyed changing their base before this feature. I mean, it was such a chore that just got more difficult with every town hall because you'd start to run out of space to rearrange your base. It was depressing, and I do not miss that. Neither do I miss when I needed to search for a person or a clan. Do you remember how difficult that was? Before clans and players had tags, if you wanted to find a player, you had to search their clan name and hope that there isn't like a dozen of them. Then open the clan and look for their name. Doing this today is like 10 times faster with tags. And links, bonus points for links, I almost forgot about that one. But speaking of players, adding friends in the game was not a thing. After doing all that work searching for a player, you could not add them and it was frustrating. You had to do it through Facebook, Google Play, or Game Center. This meant that if your friend was on an iPhone and you had an Android and neither of you had Facebook, then you were out of luck. It sucked. You know what else did? Staring at the same background and music for years. Today, the default scenery can be seen as nostalgic or OG, but at the time, we weren't calling it that. It was annoying. Not all the time, but sometimes. And, you know, most people just muted the music because of how repetitive it got. Another thing that got repetitive was being attacked and getting on, only to be forced to stare at this screen every single time. You could not see what was going on, and once upon a time, there wasn't even any replays, so you'd never know what happened. I do not want to go back to those days, no thanks. Another thing that was worse was gems. Although there was less things to buy, which is a plus, if you were buying gems, everything was significantly more expensive. The gold pass, magic item, and actually good offers today is way better than buying gems and individually spending them. Alright, this next one is not exactly about the game, but a definite factor. I don't know about y'all, but bigger phones today make Clash on the Go better. I remember clashing on an iPhone 4, which had a tiny screen, and phones were just not that big. Unless you wanted to carry around a huge iPad, you were going to be clashing on a really small screen, and I just don't miss that at all. I also don't miss how pointless clans felt in the game. Even though we had a global chat to recruit people easily, in the early days it was all for nothing because clans didn't even have anything to offer but donations. The amount of clan-centric features we have today gives it a real purpose. And while walls may never have a purpose, they are certainly way cheaper and easier to do today. Even at the upper town halls, they don't feel like a massive progression wall as they used to. This is partially thanks to a lot of things I mentioned in the video, but also because you can use Elixir to upgrade them, something that wasn't possible in the game's early days. And finally, the last reason why I feel like Clash of Clans today is better is that as technology and phones improve, we just get better and bigger features. Like I said earlier, performance on old hardware wasn't always great, and if this was 2014, we probably wouldn't have got features like the Clan Capital. Year after year, we see the developers add more innovative and exciting features, things that make you go, wow, I didn't even know that's possible. And it really makes me happy to see that as we grow, so does the game. The accumulation of years of content that's still being updated is one heck of a reason to not go back. Yeah, that is my list of some of the worst things about old Clash. Basically, reasons why modern Clash may be better. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and hey, before you go, YouTube thinks you'll like this next video. Why don't you check it out and see if they're right? As always, Havoc Gaming outs. Peace.